Hi everyone! My name is Naomi Hartl and I am the Science and STEM subject matter expert here at School of Specialty. Today we are focusing on forensic science. A forensic science program or even a simple forensic activity can get students to think analytically. It can get them to problem solve and even work together as a team. The field of forensic science covers many different topics, like document examination, DNA analysis, electronic and digital media, fingerprinting, autopsy techniques, forensic engineering, linguistics, and so much more. In your classrooms, you can set up mock crime scenes to go through some of these different things. You can get students to observe, classify, make casts, and even analyze different types of impressions. So let's dive into a couple of these activities that you can do with your students using some of these great kits I have set out here today. When an investigator enters a crime scene, it is extremely important they do not destroy any evidence that might lead to the apprehension of the criminal. A close examination of a crime scene will often reveal impression evidence that has been left behind. In an activity like this, we are going to look at shoe impressions. There are two types of comparisons made from shoe castings: class evidence and individual evidence. Class evidence focuses on the general design, the size, and even the manufacture of the materials of the shoe. Individual evidence investigates unique information about cuts, tears, defects, and even signs of irregular wear patterns. You can use an activity like this to have your students compare the positive impression of the shoe print found at the crime scene to a lineup of shoes. Students will have the opportunity to experience making their own casting of a shoe print using the materials from this kit. Once they've created their own shoe casting, they can then try to determine which shoe made the print. Another activity that you can have your students do is to analyze blood to determine the type of blood sample that is found at a mock crime scene. This can then help them determine if the blood can be matched to the victim or a suspect. In this activity, students will be using simulated materials. They'll be using simulated blood, which I have right here beside me, as well as simulated serums. They'll be given a Wells plate that has labeled sections of A and B, as you can see right here. And then they have the color-coded toothpicks that match each of the different serums. As students follow the lesson, they will carefully examine each well to determine if the discovered blood has clumped or agglutinated, which will then help them determine the type of blood that has been found. So let's just do a quick demo of what this will look like in your classroom. So to get started, you're going to take your simulated blood and you're going to add 5 drops to each well. Then you're going to take your anti-A serum and put 3 drops into well A. And then do the same thing with your anti-B serum with 3 drops, but this time in well B. You will then take your color-coded toothpicks and stir each well section for about 10 seconds. And I like to use the blue one to match the anti-A serum, which is blue. And I like to use the yellow toothpick to match the anti-B serum, which is yellow. And remember, students are looking to see if their blood samples here are going to clump or agglutinate. They will then follow the lesson and read the prompts to determine the type of blood that they have found at the crime scene. Is it type A? Is it type B? Is it type AB? Or is it even type O? That will then help them narrow down the search to find their suspect. Fingerprints are the unique pattern found between the last joint and the end of the finger. They have long been a useful tool in the classification and identification of individuals. Everyone is born with fingerprints, yet no 2 people have the same ones. There are over 7 billion people on this planet, and no one has my unique fingerprints. It is the distinctiveness of fingerprints that makes them such an invaluable tool. Knowing all of that information, you can do an activity with your students where they can analyze their own fingerprints. All you need is a fingerprint record sheet, an ink pad, and a magnifying glass. One of my quick tips for this activity, I like to tell students to fold the paper at the bottom of this table and then bring it to the edge of your current table. This way it allows your fingers to go below, or if you're holding, right? For me to do my ring finger, that's the hardest one for me to do. So if I can hold onto my finger and have my hands to the side of this table, it's easier for me to be able to take that finger and roll it from nail to nail, having it at the edge of the table, rather than struggling with my fingers to do it on top. Once students have completed all of their fingerprints, the sheet is going to look something similar to this. Then you can go through this with your students and help them decide and understand what are the different types of patterns that we're going to see in our fingerprints. Are we going to see loops? Are we going to see arches? Or are we going to see whorls? From what I'm seeing from my own fingerprints right now, looks like I've got the loop. This next activity allows students to analyze fingerprints at a crime scene using a chemical called ninhydrin. Ninhydrin reacts with the amino acids secreted by our skin and contained in our sweat. So to get started, you're going to take a blank piece of paper and get those fingertips all oiled up. I like to tell students, get behind your ears, get on the side of your nose, on your chin, on your forehead, wherever you get the most oils, wherever you're the greasiest. Get those oils on those fingertips and then firmly start placing those fingertips all over your piece of paper. I like to have students set up in groups because then they can swap their papers around after it's completed. So one of the things to remember is that ninhydrin is a respiratory irritant, so you do want to do this activity in a classroom with a fume hood. You also want to make sure you have the proper safety equipment. So, as I will demonstrate here, you want to make sure you put on your gloves, make sure you put on your goggles all the way down on your face. And then I also like to put an absorbent paper towel below the piece of paper just to collect any ninhydrin solution that maybe goes off the piece of paper. So then what you're going to do, it's nice to have it in a spray bottle. And then you're just going to spray around the paper, kind of just get it lightly wetted. And then you're going to close the fume hood and let it dry. Sometimes it takes 15-20 minutes to dry, but as it starts to dry, it's slowly going to develop the ninhydrin solution is going to develop the fingerprints, and it's going to go from like a light pink to a darker purple, which is what you see here on my piece of paper. I did this one yesterday. So then in those groups, you can assign students to a different piece of paper. You know whose they have, they do not. And then based off of all the groups' fingerprint record sheets, they then have to decide whose piece of paper they have, whose fingerprints are on their piece of paper. Wow, there are so many exciting activities that you can do with your students to introduce them to forensic science. And I only shared a few from each of these kits. If you're looking for more ways to engage with your students and get them excited about forensic science, you don't have to look far. At School Specialty, we have the products and solutions to meet the needs of your programs today. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Hi everyone.